Welcome to The Road to Innovation, powered by the Kleinert Foundation. On each episode, we delve into innovative solutions to society's most pressing issues like sex trafficking, homelessness, and poverty. We hope that with each conversation, you'll be inspired to take actionable steps towards social change. Here's your host, Hannah Rabelais from the Kleinert Foundation.
Welcome back to another episode of the Road to Innovation podcast powered by the Kleinert Foundation. This is our first episode since COVID-19 has impacted and hit our city very hard. And I want to take a moment to let you know that everyone at the Kleinert Foundation is praying for you and hoping that everyone is staying safe and well during this time. COVID-19 has impacted us in a multitude of ways. And we've also collected some resources to share with our community on our website. You can visit kleinertfdn.org to access that. Second, we want to let you know that this podcast was recorded via Zoom, so we are practicing safe and social distancing right now. That being said, I want to introduce to you our guest, Kim Robinson, CEO of New Friends, New Life. Kim, thank you so much for being with us today.
I am delighted to be here, delighted to see your face, and hoping to see you soon in person.
I know. Well, before we kick off things and really dive into the work you're doing at New Friends, can you just share with our listeners a little bit more about you, what you've done in the past before you became CEO of New Friends, New Life?
Yeah, I'd be happy to. So I spent the last 22 years here in the Dallas area. I originally came to lead an innovation role at a local consumer packaged goods company. And I did those types of roles, delving in and out of marketing and operations and strategy for a number of years in various organizations in the Dallas area. A few years ago, I joined Girl Scouts of Northeast Texas as Chief Operating Officer. And that for me was my leap into the nonprofit world. I knew that I had a passion for serving women and girls, and I could think of no better calling than helping girls achieve courage, confidence, and character. Then I got a call about the responsibility at New Friends, New Life. And after learning more about the organization and definitely about the crime of human trafficking, I knew that this was an area in which I could have a great impact and could be very meaningful for me as well.
Wonderful. Well, the transition probably from Girl Scouts to such an organization that deals with such a hefty crime probably wasn't an easy transition for you. So why are you passionate about the issue of human trafficking, and what made you take that leap into this organization?
Yeah, so many people don't realize that human trafficking is the fastest growing criminal enterprise in the world. In the US, it is the second most profitable criminal activity after drug trafficking, and that's according to UNICEF. For so long, others viewed sex trafficking as something that only happens in other countries. I know that that was a viewpoint that I held. But when I found out that it's right here in our own backyard, I knew that this was something that we had to continue to make our community aware of and had to fight against. It's astounding to know that North Texas is known as the hub for sex trafficking, and that Texas ranks number 2 in the country, and Dallas is second behind Houston in this state. So we have a lot of work to do, and unfortunately, we have a lot of women and girls who are impacted every day by this crime.
Well, thank you for saying yes to this opportunity, because it's not an easy position to be in. It's not an easy issue to even talk about because there's so many different layers to it, and it's very hard to kind of tell people, like, this does happen in our own backyard. This is not happening overseas. This is in Dallas, Texas, in our own backyard. So thank you for stepping up and leading this organization, because it's been 20 years since y'all been around, and so you have such a legacy, and you've done so well, and I'm just so happy to have you as a leader in this human trafficking space. What is the mission of New Friends, New Life? And can you talk about some of the programming that you offer to women who are coming out of this significant, horrible act that they've had happen to them?
Yeah, I love to talk about our mission. So as you said, for over 20 years, we've been working to restore and empower women and girls who've been trafficked or exploited. Last year, we were able to serve over 300 members, and we call them members because the word client has a negative connotation for so many of them based on their past. And at our organization, our goal is to make sure that women are first safe and stable. We want them to be able to make peace with their past. And ultimately, we want them to stand on their own 2 feet. So we have a comprehensive women's program that works to address their mental health and provide a holistic approach to healing. So there's case management, there's counseling, there's job readiness, vocational training, and we're working with employers to help them obtain conventional employment. Without the ability to provide for their families, much of this work would be for naught. We also have a youth drop-in center that services trafficked and high-risk teens, since that average age of individuals being trafficked is so young as 13 to 15 years old. And then we are always also working to address demand by talking to teen boys, and we have a Man Kindness Project which does that work.
Y'all are doing a lot, and probably before COVID-19, most of that done was in person. And so the women were coming up to your offices. The teen drop-in center is something that you have to be physically present for. And I want to share, before we kind of talk about how COVID-19 has impacted, y'all shared on your social media a really powerful quote that I just want to share with our listeners. One of your New Friends, New Life members said, I was really worried about not seeing y'all because you are such a big part of my life. Seeing my therapist has given me the confidence to keep moving forward and that everything will be okay. Thank you for figuring this out so we can see each other. And for our listeners, y'all were one of the first organizations I saw that pivoted really quickly to make sure everything was taken care of online and virtual, and making sure that you are having those touch points with your clients. Keeping that safety net intact for them is very difficult, and how you handled it was so done well, and you made sure all of your employees were intact. You had all the equipment ready. I mean, I hadn't seen an organization do it that quickly. So I just want to thank you for doing that so quickly and responding so quickly and pivoting the way you did, because these touch points that these women have, I mean, they're coming up to your office almost 4 times a week potentially. I mean, the physical presence is so important for these women to have that support. So how has COVID-19 impacted the way that you offer services?
Yeah, well, one of the reasons why we pivoted so quickly, Hannah, is because during this time, trafficking is at a tremendous high. Shelter-in-place orders have not stopped it, as you would think. In fact, there's been a staggering increase in online exploitation of women and girls through pornography. So we knew that we had to do what we had to do very quickly so that we could adapt to this reality of COVID-19, yet not let our services drop with our members. And as you said, I'm very proud of what we've been able to do. And thus far, I will say that we've been able to stay in contact with 96% of our membership. So to date, about 160 women and teens, and we're very proud of that. So what we've been doing is virtual counseling sessions with our adult members. So things like telehealth that you might be having even with your doctor. For those individuals who don't have access to computers, our counselors are staying in contact with them via phone, so that they're staying on track with their counseling sessions and their goals, and that they're able to address any of the trauma that's occurring as a result of this crisis. And then with our youth members, the team has set up virtual Hangouts for teen girls to connect them with our staff remotely on their private social media accounts. Not too long ago, in fact, they set up a movie watching session. So community is not lost with these members, in that through Zoom and other technology, we're able to have the conversations that need to continue to be had, and let them know that they still have a community of people who they can talk to when things come up that may trigger them. And we can also help them through this tough time when resources are so limited. Because we know that our members, in many cases, can't work. They've been their jobs have been lost, or their hours have been cut dramatically. We have drop-by services for them so that we can provide for their basic needs as best as we can. And thus far, we've been able to do that twice a week. They stop by for survival bags, as we call them. And they have food, hygiene items, and self-care tools, things like journals, things like crossword puzzles. And members and staff alike are making sure to practice social distancing while we're doing that. But it's allowing us to do this in creative ways.
Yeah, and that's incredible. Another thing y'all been creative about is I love how y'all even have shared, some of your therapists have gone on your social media accounts and sharing some of those house coping skills and coloring. I've been following along. Those have been super helpful for me because everyone has been, immensely impacted by, social distancing and quarantine. And so this is not an easy time for anybody, especially for women who are in the most vulnerable state, the women that you serve. What are other significant challenges you're having right now, besides maybe what COVID-19? I know there's a lot of people are scared about the market. There's, maybe potential a decrease in donations. Can you talk a little bit about other things that you're facing right now as an organization?
Yeah. Well, thank you for allowing me to talk about that. But, as a CEO running an organization, I think this is being felt largely everywhere, as everyone is fearing for their revenue and what that would mean to the members and individuals who need us most right now. So there is a potential loss in revenue due to our limited ability potentially to hold in-person events, which are the key mechanism by which we and so many other organizations in this town raise funds each year. So we're having to think creatively about ways in which we could hold events while adhering to social distancing, and think about the impact that that's going to have on interest, on people's ability to, want to tune in and to give ultimately. But, when we look at those issues, we still are grounded by the fact that overall, anything that we can do to serve our members and help with their financial stability, their mental stability during this time, knowing that they are the ones that are so vulnerable because traffickers are very astute to the fact that they're having economic hardship and luring them thus into porn and other forms of commercial sex activities as a means of surviving this sudden setback, as a means of getting some quick cash to be able to support, their families, to provide food and shelter for them. So the financial hardship and those concerns are present for us as an organization as well as for our members.
Yeah, thank you for raising that point, because we forget about the members that you're serving, that they're most vulnerable because, as you said, some of them have lost their jobs. A lot of them are essential workers too, and so they're on the front lines of this, and they're being impacted in so many different ways as well. This is kind of like the perfect segue. My next question, you kind of touched on it a little bit, was, I've seen a lot of news articles come out raising the alarm that sexual exploitation is still happening, which it is, and it's potentially increasing, especially via the internet and through social media. And I've seen a ton of things about that app, TikTok. What have you seen and heard? And as new friends who like seeing new clients during this time?
Oh, absolutely. So you are so right. Even a pandemic can't slow down human trafficking. As a result of COVID-19, bars and strip clubs and massage parlors are closed largely, but that doesn't mean that trafficking stops. Unfortunately, what happens is that demand increases for online entertainment like pornography, which I mentioned earlier. So Pornhub is an example of an entity that has seen a dramatic increase in membership during this time. I read something the other day that said that they've seen a 41% increase in traffic on their site. And what viewers don't realize is that this is another form of sex trafficking. Every year, millions of men and women and children are forced and coerced into prostitution, into pornography, and other types of labor. And the presence and use of pornography creates that direct pathway on the wheel of demand for adult and child sex trafficking. And so many of the girls and the women that you see on porn sites are youth. So now is the time to implore our community not to contribute to this setback by fueling the online porn industry.
Well, I'm so glad you brought up Pornhub, because a lot of people are under the misconception that just because the video is on a reputable, quote unquote, site like Pornhub doesn't mean that the women are there on their own free will. I think last year or sometime recently, they opened it up to more amateur. Like, you can actually start uploading your own, like, you don't have to be in a certain, or have a director or do something like that. It's like they're allowing, amateur, and that there's been a increase. I think in 2019, that was the most searched topic or subcategory is amateur porn. And so they are allowing people who have filmed rapes to put those on their website. And people don't know that not everyone on those is a porn star, quote unquote, or who wants to be there. So please avoid pornography right now, or even just in general, because it is not everyone is there on their free will, which is very unfortunate. And once you hear that, I feel like people are like, hopefully it changes, especially the people who watch it constantly. Like, just think about those things for a minute. Like, think about what you're consuming, that it is not there. They're not there on their free will. And I think that's it just grinds my gears. When I learned that, like, not everyone is there because they want to be, it changes anyway, I don't want to say it. It changes the perspective of pornography. We've talked a lot about negativity. Do you have like a positive story that has come out of this pandemic within your organization, or anything you've heard?
Yes. Well, the positive thing for me is that we've been able to maintain the relationships that we have, and you're hearing things like you read on our website, where women who were very nervous at the beginning about what this would mean for them have found comfort in the fact that they're still able to see and talk to their counselors. New Friends, New Life is still there. For so many of them, even during the distribution of those survival bags, just being able to see us, albeit 6 feet apart, just being able to connect in some way with individuals who are familiar to them makes a difference for them, and it helps them to survive this time. And it's beneficial for them as well as our staff, because you get so involved with your members, in that you want to continue to support them. You've seen them on this massive journey of restoration and healing, and you see the progress that they've made. And the last thing that you want is for them to fall, for that to have a setback, or for COVID-19 to have a setback on their progress. So for them to be able to see that the members still want our services and are going to be there as soon as we open the doors to resume everything in person, but in the meantime are going to continue to connect with us virtually, that's a success story.
Yes. Okay. Sorry, I want to go back to keeping people safe on the internet, especially children who have an increased screen time. And, I think everyone is just overwhelmed, especially if you have kids at home. How do you monitor everything? So do you have any suggestions on how to keep kids or even young adults safe during this time? Because people are approaching young adults and children, on TikTok, on social media. And this was happening, just one little side note, this was happening before COVID-19, but because there's an increase in screen time and people being on the internet, that probably is an increase of predators approaching young people and kids. Do you have any suggestions for parents or even young adults right now? Because we need to be aware and protect ourselves against these people who are attacking the most vulnerable on the internet right now.
Absolutely. As a mother of two 16-year-olds, I feel that sense of urgency every day to know and understand what my children are doing on the internet. And I can tell you it's very difficult. But traffickers know that on the internet, they have access to a vulnerable population of youth. Just due to the very nature of their age and their maturity, it means that they are vulnerable, and that during those teen years, they are thirsty for a sense of belonging. for someone to help them feel important. And traffickers are very astute in portraying those things to our vulnerable youth and promising them things that later they are not going to deliver on. So the internet is a hotbed for traffickers. So I always encourage parents to be aware of all of their child's friends and associates and the activity that's taking place on the internet. And there are several apps out now, thankfully, that will enable you to do that as best as possible. Net Nanny is one that is very popular and very effective in helping you to know all the sites that your child is viewing, so that you can monitor and limit their access and their activity. If you begin to notice dramatic changes in their behavior, that is something that you should tune into. Things like skipping school, something that seems very out of the ordinary for your child. So every child is different. So parents need to know what's normal for their child and what is so very out of the ordinary, and be inquisitive, ask questions, find out what's behind it. So if you're suddenly noticing new or expensive clothing or jewelry, find out where that's coming from. Unexplained money. How did you get that? Where did that come from? Tattoos that are out of character. We have to make sure that we have an open dialogue with our children, and they are sharing with us and we are sharing with them the dangers that exist, unfortunately, on the internet, in and around their schools even. And hopefully that open dialogue will help you to tune into anything about your child that appears that's different, any feelings of insecurity, any lack of safety, any of those things that often funnel into them giving into the lure of traffickers and other individuals who would mean them harm. So those are just some of the key things. And I know there is no magic bullet, unfortunately, but I think diligence is the key as a parent. Being diligent about making sure that you're limiting that screen time and you are finding a way to know what sites they're on.
Yes, that is so helpful. Thank you so much for sharing that, because it is scary, especially being a parent. I mean, I'm a young person. I don't have a TikTok account. Like technology is ever evolving and it's so hard to keep up. But even just trusting your child, I think is a good thing, is like making sure that they know that you trust them inherently, but also just being aware. And, I like how you said, keep a conversation, keep a dialogue, ask questions, be involved, especially during this time. I know it's so easy to check out during this time because we, as parents and adults, there's added pressures on us right now. And when you have your kids home, you just want your own time. I'm sure I'm not a parent, but I can imagine, I want my own time for my cat right now. He's bothering me. So I can imagine, having children at home. But I just love that advice, Kim. Thank you so much for sharing that with our listeners. Do you think that there's aspects of your programming that you'll kind of keep the same? Like, do you think you'll keep a lot of the virtual aspects now that you've seen it can work during this pandemic and afterwards? Do you think that it helps accessibility for women who need it to not have been able to come in person beforehand? Do you think you'll keep some of those things that y'all have done now moving forward once all this, social distancing has been lifted?
Yes, absolutely. That is a critical point. So that's one of the good things that has come out of this time, is that we see that virtual learning, virtual counseling sessions work, right? And in situations where that's a limitation for individuals who might not have come to us or are sick from time to time, those are aspects by which we will definitely use. Technology is there for a reason, and definitely as an agency, we've now come to understand that there are ways in which it can be more integrated into the things that we do. So absolutely.
Wonderful. So as we wrap up, I want to ask you, how can people get involved during this time of social distancing? I know there's a North Texas Gives Now that's happening on May 5th. Do you have any virtual events or anything else that people can get involved in right now safely at home?
That's right. Well, first and foremost, if individuals are interested in helping us with those survival or care kits that I've been talking about, we do those twice a week, and we have an Amazon wish list. So you can go on Amazon, go to New Friends, New Life or NFNL, and we have a list of our current needs out there. Or you could donate money to the organization, and we would take care of purchasing those items. At the drop-offs or the curbside pickups, rather, we are providing to-go lunches as a part of those survival kits. And from time to time, we have individuals who want to help us with the to-go lunches. So we are always looking for that. Virtual training and support is another area that might be of interest to some individuals. If you have a specialty, Hannah, you mentioned some of the videos that we have for our members, coloring, painting, online crafts, things like that. If you have something that you love to teach and you want to offer your service online, we would certainly love to connect with you and see if there's a way in which we could do that. And then you mentioned the Giving Tuesday Now campaign, which is on May 5th. We are fortunate and so thankful and blessed to have a donor who's going to match all funds up to $20,000. So first and foremost, our goal is to raise at least $20,000 so that we can receive that match. And we're so thankful to Communities Foundation, United Way, and the Dallas Cowboys for this campaign. This is ahead of the traditional Giving Day campaign. So it's a chance to help us right now when we need it, right when the crisis is happening. So again, I'm so thankful for it and so hoping that as many of you as possible will support us.
Yes. Well, Kim, thank you so much. And thank you to your team for doing this critical work in this critical time when everyone is in need of counseling. And I know I personally need it right now. It's been such a transition for us. And, hopefully our society is going to get back to as normal as possible in the near future. But Kim, I'm just so grateful for your leadership and so happy to have you in the anti-trafficking space, advocating for women who are, the most vulnerable right now. So thank you so much. And I hope you have a wonderful day. And thank you so much to everyone who is listening. Please consider supporting New Friends, New Life.
Thank you for joining us on another episode of The Road to Innovation, powered by the Kleinert Foundation. If you'd like to learn more about today's social innovator, please visit kleinertfdn.org or the podcast website at theroadtoinnovation.com.